My name is Jacob and welcome to another episode of Uncut on the Abrasive Conversations platform. Before I continue with today's episode, I would like to thank everyone who have recently subscribed. I would like to thank the old subscribers, the day ones, and everybody who are new to this channel. On this channel, and especially the Uncut platforms, it's a discussion about recent politics in South Africa, especially some of different view than you would find in mainstream politics. So with that being said, today's episode, I really want to respond to Kallie Kriel. So Kallie Kriel is the CEO of AfriForum. Recently went to the United States and they engaged with some of the leaders in their government, and they had interesting discussions about South Africa. Now, in that specific interview, Kallie Kriel responding to Newsroom Africa, and one of the things that he say is that he are speaking on behalf of South Africans and Afrikaners. Now, I want to make it clear is that Kallie Kriel doesn't speak for South Africans. He might speak to a small sect of Afrikaners. He doesn't even speak for the majority of Afrikaners in South Africa. So he's speaking really for a small group of people. So he doesn't speak on South Africa, so he doesn't have any right as a CEO of an NGO or NPC or whatever body they are to go and speak to a foreign government about policy issues in South Africa. That in itself is trying to undo all of the reconciliation work that we have been doing since 1994. I would even say since 1990 there have been a lot of reconciliation work to get different racial groups together in South Africa and work together. What Kallie Kriel showed and what AfriForum is showing is that they do not want to be part of this bigger vision of reconciliation in South Africa. The second thing that Kallie Kriel said is that he are doing this because of the poverty issue in South Africa. So there is issues with relate to poverty and that the government is neglecting poor people. Now, what Kallie Kriel misses is the heart of the issue when it comes to poverty in South Africa. The majority of people who are poor in South Africa is because of a direct result of the violence of Afrikaners since the late 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, all the way into the 21st century. So, and you guys can read my book on it. I dedicated the book onto this. The book's name is The Attempted Erasure of the Khoikhoi and San. And there's 2 chapters that specifically focus on the violence that the Afrikaners cause to indigenous groups all over South Africa. And that violence that led to the dispossession of land from indigenous groups and which subsequently led to their oppression within a colonial state and an apartheid state. So you guys can go and read my book. The book's name is The Attempted Erasure of the Khoikhoi and San. In that book, I deal with the land issue and why people are poor in South Africa. So it's quite hypocritical of AfriForum and Kallie Kriel to say that the poverty issue in South Africa is a post-apartheid issue. That's a blatant lie. It's a historical issue that is related to the dispossession of land. So one of the things, and this is what he's trying to prevent, he doesn't want black people to get into middle class and to the upper levels of society. He and AfriForum wants black people to stay poor and work on these farms. Which brings me to one of the things that he misses, and he's so ignorant, is that one of the poorest groups in South Africa is the farm workers. Their children is some of the most poorest in South Africa. They don't get educational opportunities, and many of those children on the Western Cape and the Northern Cape farms are paid with alcohol. Their parents are paid with alcohol. So these young people, these young kids are born with fetal alcohol syndrome, or like people nowadays call it a spectrum disease. So fetal alcohol syndrome or spectrum disease causing brain damage and enslave these young people again on the farms or farm workers, getting underpaid. So farm workers is one of the most poorest, and AfriForum are failing to do something about the poverty on these farms. So Kallie Kriel and AfriForum must be the last group of people to talk about poverty in South Africa, because they are not doing anything about it, and because they have access to so much of the resources of South Africa. It's quite hypocritical and say is that Cyril Ramaphosa's government or the ANC is responsible for the poverty and not doing anything about it. It just shows is that they want to continue the racist status quo that they experience in apartheid and largely in post-apartheid South Africa. Which brings me to the third point. What I don't see is that the United States is the biggest bully in the international environment, and they're currently bullying South Africa because South Africa have taken a stance in the international spectrum. South Africa is part of BRICS, and Iran is one of the BRICS signatories, one of the BRICS members. So we have a right in the international arena to have relationships with Iran. We have a relationship with Russia, and we have a relationship with every other country that is friendly towards South Africa. So that's our foreign policy. We stand with the people who stand with us. So Kallie Kriel, in his interview with Newsroom Africa, says that one of the reasons why the United States is acting the way that they're acting is because Naledi Pandor took a photo with the Iranian president. So what? We took a photo. We took a photo with many other groups and heads of state. The United States cannot dictate with who we can have relationships in the global arena. And if they have a problem with it, so what? Let them have a problem with it. But we cannot change our foreign policy, our value systems, so that we can appease the United States of America. Donald Trump is a big bully, and he's now the head of state of the biggest bully in the international arena. And the biggest aggressor in international politics is the United States. They are causing wars, they're causing conflicts because they want to keep the minority interests in the United States firmly at the table of the global negotiations when it comes to resources, when it comes to whatever direction global elites are taking. That is what the United States are doing. It's just a big bully. And South Africa are not going to be bullied. President Cyril Ramaphosa made it clear. So they must do what they must. The thing for me is that Kallie Kriel and AfriForum must decide on whose side they are. If they want to be South African, then it's time for them to have an inward look and start doing the reconciliation work that needs to be done so that all groups can live together in South African harmony. And they're not doing that thing. Which brings me to the last and final point. And that is a policy issue. So they went to the United States to discuss two policy issues. The one is the Expropriation Act and the other is Bella. Both of these things is historical, and it has caused so much violence towards indigenous groups in South Africa, and they can't see it because they are the benefactors of this violence, this colonial violence and apartheid violence. So Afrikaans has been treated as one of the most protected languages in South Africa and post-apartheid South Africa. What the Afrikaners forget is that Afrikaans is a language of violence. It was formulated by slaves and Khoi people, and it became something that they completely owned, but it was appropriated, it was used for Afrikaner nationalism. They didn't even start this language that they are fighting about. But what they miss is that this language have caused so much harm to indigenous groups. It has been used to oppress other groups. It has been used to deny education for people who could not speak that specific language. And that's why it's not even endangered language in South Africa, is because it got preferential treatment. There is languages that are in serious danger in South Africa. If you go into a bookstore, getting literature in any indigenous language like Sesotho, isiZulu, isiXhosa, or even the Nama language, you won't find literature like that, because those languages are not given the same preferential treatment as Afrikaans and English in South Africa. So what the Bella Act is trying to do is make it more friendly for other languages. So Afrikaans is not an endangered language, it is not a threat, but it's this thing that AfriForum can use to forward their right-wing nonsense and policies that they're doing. Which brings me to the second policy issue, and I've just mentioned it earlier. It's on the expropriation of land. No Afrikaner's land was taken from them at this particular point in time. So there is those mass land grabs in South Africa. South Africa is a stable democracy who is currently in a government of national unity with other smaller parties, and they don't even share the same ideology. So to compare us to Zimbabwe and what can happen in Zimbabwe can happen in South Africa, it's quite nonsense, because if you look at the policies and if you look at our laws, then we are different. You cannot compare us to any other country. We want to be a unique country that wants to be reconciliatory in its efforts. And this is what AfriForum doesn't want, because once there is reconciliation, the efforts amongst the various racial groups, then they cannot forward their right-wing politics, and then there will be no space for AfriForum in post-apartheid South Africa. So what AfriForum is doing is a classic divide and conquer, breaking South Africa into smaller and smaller groups, and then get big bullies like the United States to interfere, arm those groups with information and even weapons, as we saw during apartheid and colonialism, and then overthrow and change governments. So AfriForum at this particular point is playing a serious and dangerous game in international politics. Kallie Kriel and AfriForum has no right to speak on South Africa and for South Africa. We have a democratic elected government that can speak on our behalf. So Kallie Kriel and AfriForum, if any of you are watching this, you're playing a dangerous game, and it's a game that none of us can win. Not you can win it, not us can win it. And what's going to happen is that you're going to see a country in ruins. So be careful. Take your effort towards reconciliatory efforts in South Africa. And those reconciliatory efforts will actually give us a much more stable future, a future in which all of us can prosper. So that's just my advice to you guys, and I hope that some of you would listen and would see that we have a constitution that is 100 years and so far ahead of its time. And one of the things it says, non-racialism and human dignity. What you are doing is not tying into that specific vision. You want a racial divided South Africa where Afrikaners get preferential treatment over the poor black majority in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I stumbled over my words a little bit there, but it's because I'm tired. I'm tired of this victimhood of the Afrikaners, where they are black people in South Africa that is suffering. There's people, young kids, black kids, that are going to bed hungry, and some of those people are living on these farms of the Afrikaner, the AfriForum members. So these are the things that makes me angry. In moments like this, I do fall over my words. So I apologize for that. But I cannot take these lies anymore. And I hope someone, somewhere, will agree with me that this is just a lot of nonsense. But we do not really have to tie into AfriForum's and Kallie Kriel's nonsense. And there is a much bigger challenge in South Africa that we are facing, and we have to do something about it. We cannot blame. We have to roll up our sleeves. We have to make positive contribution to our communities. That's the only way we will get to where we want to be in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.